best?
Nick and I have been walking a journey. I'm still walking it. Unfortunately, Nick will say his part. He's lost his lovely wife, Anne. My husband is in a D6 facility now, and I am struggling with engaging with him now, Annabelle, because he's no longer talking, walking, anything. It's really difficult going in to visit him and try to have a meaningful visit. So I'll talk to you about that a bit later. Our journey's been a number of years. I've been about 20 and Nick
15 years. Yeah.
So we've gone through a lot, and yet not a lot has changed. And we will focus more on young onset because that's where we all started. And we feel that there's not really enough said and focused on young onset when it's a growing thing that's happening here in, well, it's worldwide. But for us, we do lots of talks. We work with Walking in Others' Shoes, and we give the carers perspective with that, with community caregivers, with caregivers in rest homes, and with our nursing students and with RNs. So we give our perspective, and we always have a box of tissues, okay? And we have them crying at every time. And I'm sorry, it sounds really bad, but our main thing is we want everybody we're talking to feel, really feel what this disease is all about, what it's like for our loved one, but also what it's like for us and our families, which is huge. And if facilities don't embrace the family as part of the community in the dementia facility, that's hard. That's really, really hard, because when we make that, well, when that decision is made for us, or when we are agreeable to that decision to move them into care, we go visiting them all the facilities, we check them out, and, you know, sometimes beds are available, sometimes they're not. But when we make a decision and we take them through those doors, we have to have a huge blind leap of faith and trust that that facility is going to look after our significant other. And could you imagine how hard that is? We've got to let go of the reins. It's really, really, really difficult to do. We're entrusting our loved one with strangers. But if that facility embraces the family of that new resident, the facility will have a better journey, the person with dementia will have a better journey, and so will we as families, because it becomes a community within that environment if that's allowed. So I've talked enough now, we'll come back, but we'll let Nick do some talking as well, because he loves to talk.
Yeah, thank you, Cheryl. If I may just start by saying, Annabelle, you know, listening to your talk was like liquid gold to us. It was refreshing. You obviously come from a source of good knowledge. You're obviously very passionate about the subject and about communication, about how we communicate with dementia patients. So to us, that is just wonderful to hear. My wife passed away sadly 3 years ago. Anne and I are married for 45 years, just the most wonderful relationship. As opposed to what has happened to Cheryl, we are a couple with no children involved. So purely our dynamics was around friends and family, and we know how that affected our lives and my life in particular as the carer. And from what you talk about communication, is something that we experienced throughout the journey of dementia, and something which clearly you understand and your audience, you know, hopefully understands. In terms of what you've put forward is the parameters of how do we enter the world of the patient with dementia, because clearly it is a world which is different to normality. And when we talk to nurses and carers, we particularly talk about entering the world of the dementia patient and the communication with the dementia patient. That communication is so important to us. And different carers have different needs. For instance, Cheryl's got a family with 2 young children who got affected by dementia, and which was part of the journey. which also needs to be inclusive of any conversation that's been held with the carer of a dementia patient. Sure, I'll just let you carry on. Thank you.
Okay. Really, to us, it's all about how we make them feel. It's how, as Annabelle was saying too, they're our most vulnerable, but to communicate with them, we feel we all have to be just as vulnerable as well. And if that means you look like an absolute idiot because you're dancing around the room like a big grizzly bear, or you're singing and you can't sing a note, who cares? Or you are singing nursery rhymes to them, or you're making them laugh. I don't care what it is. But if facilities, if the staff can engage with a resident like that, they build rapport, they gain trust, they learn more about the resident. And if the families see the staff being vulnerable like that as well, they will mimic that behaviour with the resident. It will become more like second nature, and it's much easier for them to think, well, this is normal. I mean, this gentleman can do it so well that he can walk out the door of a D6 facility and a lovely family member is going, no, I don't think you're allowed out of here. I think you need to go back inside. This is where you live. They thought he was one of the residents.
I spent a lot of time. I spent a lot of time banking checks for people, helping plumbers repair pipes. You know, I had a woman in a facility the other day walk up and she said she was 87 years of age. She walked up and she said, "Now something terrible's happened." I said, "What happened, Mavis?" She said, "Mum's just lost her job. She's resigned." I said, "Oh dear." I said, "Tell me a bit more about it." She said, "Oh, Dad's not very happy." So what does Dad have to say? She said, "Oh, Dad's furious. That means that I'm going to have to go out and work now." So she was living in that real world. Her parents had passed away many, many, many years ago, but she was very realistic at that point that Mum had resigned. I said, "Where did Mum work?" She said, "H.G. Wells." And I didn't know who H.G. Wells were in Christchurch. And I asked one of the people working in the facility, and she said, "Oh, they used to be a haberdashery company in Christchurch years ago." So she retained that memory. But facilitating what she was saying as opposed to arguing against what she was saying became a whole conversation. And I must have spent 10, 15 minutes with her. So it is a bit of an imaginary world. And in terms of communication, that is so important that we also teach people like ourselves, carers who haven't walked that path, as to how to handle that situation. And that's where people in our audience, as professionals, have a care of duty to see that communication is there between the spouse, the loved ones, and those who are in care.
Mm-hmm. Even before they get in, they go into care, there's lots of sort of gaps as well. And there was with my children, because they were just young teenagers when we started getting a diagnosis, which back then took years. It absolutely took years. And when they finally diagnosed Ryan, he was already severe. So we skipped a whole lot of the resources that we possibly could have had made available to us, which was hard. And further down the track, it's like, okay, young children seem to get missed. And I started a support group 10 years ago, 18 years ago, for people like myself, because I'm not knocking Dementia Canterbury. I'm not. There is definitely a need there. But I was going to workshops with 80 and 90-year-olds, and I was only in my 40s. I had nothing, and I still had to earn a living, and I had nothing in common with them. So through the memory clinic and things, I eventually, after 2 years, managed to set up a group, and it's still running. It's about 50 strong, and it's really, really good. But what that allowed me to do was start doing a support group in the rest home that my husband's in for families, not for the residents themselves, for families. And then I snowboarded off that and did them in other facilities But then with COVID, I lost my job. So it was like, okay, I had to find another job. And guess what? I'm in the retirement industry. I'm still working with dementia. So it's still a passion for me. But it's like, how can you put it? It's going back to the kids side of it. They're a huge part of it. And especially when they're young, it's a very impressionable time. At the sort of when I put the group together, most of them had young kids and most of them were on Prozac. Most of them were isolating from their friends because they didn't want their friends to come and see mum or dad behaving the way they did. It was embarrassing. Teenage hormones, wonderful. And further down the track, I thought, oh yeah, okay, my kids have done okay. They've done all right. But it catches up. So I did have a daughter that went through depression for about 12 months. That's fine. And then I had a son that went on suicide watch because he wasn't talking about what was going on. So when we do these talks, and particularly with the community caregivers, I really stress, please keep an eye on the kids. It's not just the person with dementia. It is the wife or the husband, and it's the immediate family. Most definitely, they've got to be taken care of and watched as well. My goal, I would love to see every dementia facility in New Zealand have a support group for family members. I started one here where I work. I haven't got it within the memory clinic yet, but I've got it because out in the community, there's still a lot of people with dementia, and there's still a lot of people who deny that it's happening. And there's a lot of families that deny that mum and dad are suffering from short-term memory loss, whatever. It's hard. And that's my role. I'm dealing and working with people like that. But I honestly believe support groups, because it's not structured, it meets the need of what it should at that particular point in time of meeting. And you gain such a lot of insight. I never knew anything about WINS. I've never dealt with WINS before. And I tell you what, when you have to start dealing with WINS, dear God. But the rest of the group had different scenarios that played out when they dealt with WINS. And it was like, you're entitled to that? Really? Oh my God, but Brian's only getting $3.63 a week. No, you should be getting at least $30 odd. And it's like, you've got to ask the questions in a certain way. And then you might get what you're entitled to. But support groups are a wealth of knowledge as well. They're a wealth of experience and challenges and wins. And they're there to cry and laugh and vent and do whatever you need to do in a supported environment of like-minded people. So that would be my dream. If I could just wave the magic wand, I'd love to, because that's the thing that happens. We come from the outside world. We've been looking after our loved one for as long as we can, and we get that support from different resources out in the community. And guess what? When they go into care, it's gone. It's gone. So that's why I think the homes need to pick up that big gap, because families are floundering. Families don't understand what's really happening. Very few educate themselves like we have. Very few do. Like I know in my last place where I worked with Brian, I was receptionist there, and Brian was there. And I know I've walked this walk for a long time, but they would go into visit, and they'd come back down the ramp after their visit, and you could tell they were really, really, really upset. So a facility needs to keep an eye on that and take them aside. Talk to them, find out why they're upset. You know, it just could be that they don't understand the decline of this disease. And some days are worse than others. And again, we just need to embrace them, and we just need to make sure they know it's fine. That's normal behaviour. So next time, go in and do A, B, C. Some of Annabelle's ideas were absolutely brilliant. Notice I took lots of photos. Thanks, Annabelle.
I think my colleague Cheryl actually underestimates the power she has put into support groups and the great benefit that support groups have. People like myself, I joined Cheryl's support group early on, probably 2 years into Anne being into care. That's when I met Cheryl and her husband Brian. And the benefits are not just within the support group, but extend beyond that, because the grieving process, as you know, with dementia goes on longer after your partner has passed. You know, I'm 3 years down the track. There's still a lot of emotion involved. There's still support needed. You still need somebody to bounce things off. And within the support group, a lot of us that have lost our spouses, but yet we still belong to the support group, helping the next set of people coming through. And the same thing within the rest home situation. If we can have support groups set up within the rest home, run by the carers themselves, the spouses themselves, with the rest home adding the knowledge in from the carers and the nurses and those professionals within that organisation, it's going to make the years coming so much easier as we exponentially get more and more people being admitted in the area of dementia. And particularly in the area of young dementia, we're seeing more and more cases of young people coming through. I know when Anne first went into a rest home, it was a rude shock. She got put into a rest home with a bunch of old people. As far as she was concerned, she was, mid-50s, in an old age home where they played old time music, that sang old songs. As soon as she entered the rest home into care, she deteriorated quite dramatically. So we've got to think about the younger age group as well when we do set up these support groups. But Cheryl does an amazing job, and is still doing the amazing job within the centre that she works, the care centre that she's with. So we are so enthusiastic about promoting the knowledge about dementia. People like Annabelle, I just can't emphasise how important you are to the world of dementia.
Oh, thank you, Jennifer. Oh, that's good. Yep, that's our vision too. So how much longer do we have?
Whoops, about 5 minutes.
About 5 minutes?
I know, so hard.
But ultimately for us with communication, it is educating people. That definitely is our passion. We've done it for years and years. But really, probably the biggest take as well when we're talking to people is bring joy into their lives. Whether it just be a moment, whether it be 5 minutes, whether it can be half an hour, it doesn't matter. But to them it does. And if you can make them laugh, put a smile on their face, or just make them feel a bit more relaxed and happy, it's a win-win. Whether that be a family member doing that or it be staff member, I don't care. And again, it goes back to being vulnerable. I don't care if I sing off key. Wouldn't have it, and often I do. And it's never quiet. But, if I've got Brian in his room and I put on some of his favourite little songs, it's amazing how some of the other residents all start coming in and sitting on the bed, lining up. Who cares? Who cares? And that really, I used to really worry about what people thought of me. I think we go through an age where we do. And you know what now? I don't. This disease has taught me to be more patient than I ever thought I had. I thought motherhood would do that, but dementia certainly tests it. And tolerant. It has given me some skills that I didn't know I possessed. It's allowed me to meet different people, and you know what? It has helped me help others. I feel it's helped me make a difference. And I know Nick feels exactly the same, making a difference.
I just think, everyone has a story to tell, as does the dementia patient have a story to tell. And they might not recognise who we are or know who we are, but they certainly do feel our love. And that comes through communication, the way we communicate, the way we touch, the way we handle them, obviously all in appropriate ways. But the power of touch is just, you just can't explain how important that is. Just a hand on the shoulder, a rub on the back, a holding of a hand, just acknowledging as the person talks. I never even knew Brian in his life before dementia. I'm his friend in his dementia world. He's got no clue who I am, where I come from, but he got to know my voice and know who I was. And I just love this guy as I've met him. So I don't see him any different. I just enter his world, spend a lot of time talking about his background, what he was, what he did. Brian was a very competent businessman and owned his own plumbing works. I've spent a lot of time fixing pipes with Brian and know absolutely nothing about plumbing. And as Cheryl says, time and time again, people wouldn't let me out of the facility because they thought I belonged there. So it is a wonderful world in many ways. A very sad world, very sad from the perspective of us as carers. Having walked those miles with them leaves a lot of scars, but at the same time also brings a lot of joy.
I'm going to finish off with a wee quote. Too often we underestimate the power of a touch, a smile, a kind word, a listening ear, an honest compliment, or the smallest act of caring, all of which have the potential to turn someone's life around, even if it's just for that moment. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.